Once a man named Takakaru Raizu suddenly died of a heart attack, only to awaken as a killing machine in a strange new world. That's when the story of Walm begins. A soldier, Walm emerges from a battle where most enemies have already fallen, bringing victory for his platoon. After scavenging through the enemy soldiers, Walm puts his hands together, which his fellow fighter Jose calls out as praying on the battlefield. Considering it a habit, Walm shrugs it off and they regroup with the rest of the squadron. On their way back to camp, Jose speaks of the 9 lives that Walm took. Walm doesn't see it as prideful, saying killing is just part of the job. If the state orders to kill, they kill. Jose calls him serious and suggests they hurry to camp. At night, the victorious battalion is at peace, enjoying a meal after a long day of fighting. That's when Commander Duel catches Walm off guard to discuss the 9 enemies he killed. He does so as if they were competing, since he killed 15 himself thanks to the skill he possesses. Their conversation is interrupted by Burrito and his rookie mate Noor, who call the skill a cheat on the battlefield. Duel defends it as legal and permissible. Noor asks if his skill can really pierce through armor, and Duel proudly agrees. Walm considers skills noble and asks Jose if they're worth wishing for. Jose explains the difference between magic and skills, giving Duel's powerhouse moves as an example of a sure kill technique. While magic feels surreal, a skill is earned as a human ability. This fascinates Walm, and he wishes he had a skill too. Jose asks if he would rather have a skill or use magic, to which Walm replies that magic is more impressive. They joke about it while Walm grows sleepy. Moments later, they start discussing their strategies for the next war, which is due tomorrow. And tomorrow, they're up against the Kingdom of Mired. They're strategizing to completely split up the Liberto Trade Federation, but their ultimate target is going to be Mired. Walm and his platoon's core objective is going to be paired up with High Cirque Empire's forces that are going to gather up at Sarya City. And from there, together, they're going to climb Mired. Commander Duel warns them that it's going to be unlike any battle that they've endured so far. It's going to be havoc, and they better be prepared for what's coming. Fast forward to the day when the swords are about to get drenched in blood. Absolute massacre takes the central stage, and soldiers can be seen mercilessly piercing through each other's throats. Amid the chaos, Walm is distracted by his thoughts and nearly gets killed before Duel rescues him. They hold the land of Sarya for now, waiting for the next morning to advance on Mired. The city, however, is in ruins. Poverty and prostitution fill the streets, which unsettles Walm. He gives money to a beggar woman, but Jose warns that helping will only attract more. He further mocks Walm for his softer side despite being a soldier. But all this is because of his shared memories of being from a poor background. He chose to be a soldier because money makes money, and he needed money desperately. Further, Duel explains Sarya's history. Once called the Konoha Kingdom, it was rich and fertile 5 years ago. After rebellion and invasions, it fell into ruin. The Mired Grand Duke was once a Konohan nobleman who had abandoned the kingdom, which was later trampled and vandalized by another neighboring kingdom known as Farius. At that time, Farius was at war with High Cirque, and High Cirque was too weak to resist. The Duke seized Konoha, becoming ruler of Mired, leaving the land impoverished. This is mainly why Commander Duel wants to go against Mired and own it for himself. Chatting and walking across the dirty streets of Konoha, they've made their way to the bar to fetch a meal and drinks for the night because tomorrow is a big day for them. They spend their night drinking, whereas Walm questions himself if it's actually right to be a soldier. A soldier? More like a murderer? Morning dawns in Mired, where Commander Gerard Berger rallies his troops to finally end the 5-year war. Meanwhile, Duel and his smaller force prepare to face the Duke's army. 3 units are sent from Sarya to capture 3 routes into Mired, including a fort that blocks the main road. Duel's squad is assigned to the fort. They set camp nearby and wait for the right moment. Jose remarks that newcomers often die quickly in combat, and asks Noor and Burrito to rely on Walm if danger comes. Noor agrees, having heard of Walm's skill in battle. Walm warns Noor to stay close and saves her from danger. Duel commands the charge. Soldiers climb the fort walls under heavy fire, and Walm is the first to reach the top. He cuts down enemies until Noor's scream draws his attention. A heavily armored knight with a spear axe closes in on her. He throws a shield at him to grab his attention, and the knight leaps onto Walm with full force. Walm manages to somehow dodge his attack, but gets his arm injured in between. Considering the strength of this knight, it's safe to say that his level matches that of Commander Duel's, but since he is away fighting enemies, Walm will have to take this one himself soon, otherwise Noor's life will be at stake. Walm presses the attack. The knight injures him again, aiming for his eyes, but Walm narrowly dodges. Seeing the knight hesitate, Walm seizes the moment. His body felt lighter, his sword as if it was mere metal scrap, but with just one mighty blow, he managed to pierce through the knight's defenses, resulting in his body split into two. The enemy forces falter in fear. This marks the awakening of Walm's true skill. Duel praises him and tells him to rest while others finish the fight. Noor thanks Walm for saving her life. The fort is theirs, but the war is far from over. They have only taken the first step. Inspecting the dead guy's body, Duel concludes that they're dealing with a magic user specializing in wind and fire. The most shocking part of all is the cause of this man's death, as his face is half clobbered and smashed with a mysterious ability. Days passed until the Battle of the Fort. Many troops were able to escape and capitalized on guerrilla warfare in the nearby forest. The High Cirque army, which was supposed to en route for the Mired capital, forcibly stopped, resulting in a huge loss of resources and casualties for them. Tension rises as reports of caravans being attacked reaches an all-time high. The Mired troops that ran off have yet to be located. Meanwhile, Walm deduces the cause of death of the magic user. Judging by his crushed face, he concludes that it must have been a result of repeated strikes to the face instead of one smash. Duel suspects that a shield must have been used for the job, which makes the entire team wonder if they're dealing with a skill user here. Of course, Commander Duel confirms that there are more than enough people out there who can utilize the power skill, but he's confident that this is the work of the Iron Wall skill instead, which boosts the effectiveness of a wooden shield to an iron one. Thanks to that skill, even using an ordinary wooden shield turns into a lethal weapon and turns a person's face into mush. Absorbing this information, the wheels in Walm's brain start churning for an answer. Knowing that only magic or skill users are able to use such an ability, he senses that the Mired troops must have several people currently doing the same thing in guerrilla warfare. Long story short, things are looking bad. The team learns that an entire search party's attempts to find the caravan were proven unsuccessful. Instead, they're the ones who suffered 30 casualties. Despite their easy victory over their enemies at the fort, it is natural to predict the enemy's downfall. But the complete opposite is happening, and the Mired troops appear more resilient than ever. Smoking a cigarette, Walm theorizes if the smell of tobacco is being detected in the environment. Jose argues otherwise, stating that it would be ridiculous because their own bodily stench is stronger than the smell of tobacco. Burrito casually asks if he can wear some perfume while he's at it, prompting his team to make fun of the guy because they think he should pair it with a cute skirt too. Noor takes the spotlight by highlighting a dead man's body, hanging like a fruit from a tree branch. As if he's proud to see the corpse, Jose explains that these forest people actually sold information to their enemies, so they were hanged for it. His heartless admittance leaves Noor at a loss for words, while Walm senses her discomfort and calls her out, expressing that he wasn't used to seeing horrible things either. But he started feeling less disgust when someone advised him what these people did to their own allies. Still, Noor finds herself lost in thought, as if she feels sorry. Walm doesn't say a word and keeps busy to himself. The rest of them are discussing plans to take out the enemy troops so they can steal their loot. However, Jose reminds everyone that they're dealing with strong magic and skill users, so it won't be a walk in the park. Instead, it will be like fighting Duel and Walm at the same time. Burrito admits that it's going to be tough for them, even if they had a numbers advantage, while Walm wonders why he's not being treated in the class of a normal soldier. Suddenly, a loud explosion alerts the attention of the group. Jose senses that something is happening in 400 meters and has likely spiraled with their search network. Deciding to target them from the right, Commander Duel orders his team to defeat every last one of them. Walm and the others are approaching fast until he locates the Mired troops. One of the enemy soldiers spots him and alerts everyone of the flanking reinforcements. However, it's already too late for him as our protagonist slices open his head with his weapon. Moving on to his next target, Walm slaughters his enemies. Suddenly, Jose notices something that settles him. He realizes that they're dealing with the leading adventurers party. The long-haired young man from their team urges for their escape, knowing that enemy soldiers are moving in on the attack. Their team captain also appears to be doing well. Meanwhile, Noor inquires about the adventurer party and learns that these people are responsible for annihilating demons and clearing dungeons. Finally, it all starts to click in Walm's head. It was never the Mired troops that were capable of defeating their men. It was actually the adventurers party and the elite knights. The battle rages on with Duel overwhelming one of the enemy forces. This guy has a shield on him and blocks his attack. leading the commander to suspect that he's the one with the iron wall skill. It bothers him that the guild decided to go back on its position of neutrality from abstaining in the war, but strangely, they've decided to participate all of a sudden. His opponent sarcastically remarks that he and his friends are doing it out of their own free will. Focusing on Walm, he senses an attack coming from behind. Swiftly maneuvering himself, he dodges the wind strike, which goes on to slice off one of the soldiers' heads. Realizing that he's dealing with a competent wind-type magic user, Walm focuses on his surroundings by ducking and sensing where the attack came from. At last, he spots the person responsible. She's the captain of the adventurers' party, and though she's merely a child, Walm can't afford to let a magic user run free. Adopting his murderous intent, he goes for the kill and pushes ahead. The elite knights quickly swoop in to protect the magic user, but their efforts are pitifully useless in the end, as Walm capably disarms one of them, literally, and then goes on to slash the other guy clean. With both men spooling out blood on the ground, one of them begs to be spared. But in Walm's eyes, he ruthlessly declares that no one's coming to help any of them. Coldly, he murders the soldier with a slash, ensuing a moment of silence and frustration for the young magic user. She roars her frustrations, questioning how someone like him is capable of taking a life so easily. Her hard-hitting words slow Walm down for a moment, but his eyes quickly adjust to the dread and he educates his enemy that this is normal on the battlefield. He also reminds her that she's responsible for killing people for the sake of her side too, so there's no point in discussing anything. In a last-ditch effort to strike him down, the magic user releases another wind strike. Except it is predictable and the same as last time, making it easy for Walm to evade it and get close to her. He's seconds away from ending her life. Walm charges his battle axe and reaches for her neck, when suddenly something stops him. His eyes widen in shock when he sees her raising her shield with a power skill. But it doesn't mean anything, because Walm cuts off the shield and deals considerable damage to the magic user. She topples down with a sliced arm, clutched to her injury. Walm analyzes this brief interaction and recalls that she changed into a defensive stance right when she was about to be killed. This shows that she's well-trained with good war experience, so he doesn't understand why she felt so angry at him. Suddenly, he realizes the problem. Despite her abilities, he realizes that she's not used to killing others. Walking up to her in her miserable state, Walm orders her to surrender with a machine-like cold expression on his face. His haunting demeanor causes her to panic and lash out at him with random wind strikes. Though Walm is initially surprised, he catches her slipping on her feet. It brings him great joy to remind her that she too is responsible for killing a person. First, he takes out her weapon with a swing, which leads her to wonder if this is the end of the line for her. Aiming for the killing blow, Walm aims to pierce her body when he senses someone approaching from his side. Deeming it to be a threat, he quickly turns back to block the hit. Despite Walm successfully being able to defend himself, he narrowly escapes a critical blow. Reclaiming some distance, he takes a look at his assailant. This young man is a swordmaster who urges his leader to stay behind. She roars out Elle's name in concern, leading Walm to understand that this girl leads the adventurers' party. Elle is in position to defend his leader while a certain feeling of dread crutches Walm. He absolutely despises having to do this, and yet he makes his move with such an incredible speed that it stuns the swordmaster. Walm goes for a clean horizontal swing, but his opponent is fast and evades the attack, repositioning himself again. Through this small encounter, Walm understands that his opponent must be using body acceleration, which means he's dealing with another wind magic user. Elle goes for a retaliation strike with his blade, but he misses Walm, who mocks the guy for ever thinking he stood a chance. His provocation pisses him off until suddenly, Elle sees one of his friends get injured nearby. Distracted, he decides to ramp up his body acceleration speed to end the fight. However, Walm has already gotten used to his skill and casually dodges. Out of nowhere, the girl starts screaming in tears, begging Emi to dodge. Her shout startles both the swordmaster and Walm, until suddenly the swordmaster is hit with an incredibly painful blow. Still, he chooses to fight against Walm, pointing out how the enemy invaders have no regard for human life. Smiling at him in return, Walm points out his hypocritical thinking. The adventurers were killing people left and right, and seemed to have gotten used to the idea that they were incapable of being killed. Bawling his eyes out, the adventurer tells him to just shut up. His denial means nothing, because Walm casually directs his opponent's sword, and then goes on to stab his shoulder with a clean, piercing strike. Walm pins this guy to the nearest tree with his battle axe. allowing himself an easy chance to take out his blade and kill the leader next. The pinned swordmaster screams in agony, while the adventurer party's leader succumbs to the haunting realization that every single one of her party members has fallen. Walm admits that he's envious of the fact that she's not used to killing. First, he takes out the swordmaster with a killing blow. Suddenly, Walm senses something and dodges an attack so powerful it messes up his left arm. Questioning where this hidden spell even came from, he looks around for answers. It's all made clear when he sees the girl taking a stand, even with her injured arm. Anger in his eyes, she unleashes an incredibly powerful ripple of magic that obliterates everything in its path. Walm is starting to realize that he's dealing with a much more powerful foe than he imagined, but that same spell is responsible for killing many of the soldiers from his troop. Duel alerts the team that they're dealing with an area of effect user, so it's best to split up. When the dust settles, Walm comes out to confront her, but realizes that she ran away to escape. After the fight, Duel and Jose discuss the scale of the magic spell. They predict that whoever unleashed it must have suffered immense backlash from using the ability. Jose inquires if they should chase after her, but his commander explains that there's no point in doing meaningless work. Instead, Duel intends to lead his men toward the Mired capital. Back to our protagonist, Walm inspects his bruised arm and reflects how competent those adventurers were. Their only flaw was being unable to kill on the battlefield when needed, or else this fight would have turned out a lot differently. Still, he can't help but feel paralyzed by the girl's expression. Walm knows that he doesn't enjoy killing either. As for the girl, she's last seen escaping in tears, questioning what kind of monster she was dealing with back there. A while passes after the battle, and the soldiers have gone on a break. Willett extends his hand, instructing Walm to grab hold of it. He knows that Walm is keen on learning magic, so he thinks this is a good opportunity to teach him. Excited, Walm grabs his hand right away. Their intertwined hands appear strange in the eyes of Noor until Jose explains that Willett is transferring his own magical energy to Walm through this procedure. Thanks to this test, they'll be able to learn if Walm has the ability to wield magic or not. If he does, he can shoot fireballs and water spears much like Willett does. Jose teases them by saying they're having an intimate moment through hand-holding. Walm's irritation shows on his face while Willett urges him to keep focusing. He closes his eyes shut, sensing a cold feeling, to which Willett confirms it's a requirement before using elemental magic. Parting their hands, he instructs Walm to keep focusing on the palms of his own hands and visualize the flow of water. Heeding his advice, he visualizes the image of a flowing river, until suddenly a water ball emerges out of nowhere in his palm. Excited, Walm thinks that he's conquered magic, but in Wheelot's eyes, his level is one of sheer disappointment. He emphasizes that it's useless and decides to take a different approach by instructing Walm to become a human, just like he is. Duel laughs at the realization that they've got 2 human wells to use at their disposal. The magic user urges Walm not to sweat, because it will hinder his magical power. If he fails to control his water excretions, he'll end up in a drained state. The thing about water magic is that it requires less mana compared to the usual skill. This makes Walm question if he's been using magic this entire time, even though he was told he was a skill user. Willett corrects him and confirms that in fact, all skills in body enforcement magic requires magical power. The distinction lies in whether or not the magic is elemental, like unleashing fireballs, or if it's technique-based, like using a power attack or an iron wall ability. Both are ultimately magic but in different forms. Willett is shocked that he's unaware of such a basic concept, to which Walm states that he didn't receive any education in his childhood as the son of a farmer. Next up, Willett thinks it's time to test his aptitude for fire magic. Walm sits down across from him in a state of meditation, when suddenly Willett's attention is stolen by a bunch of guys. When he turns to look at Walm, he is stunned by him being able to unleash a column of flames. Helpless and feeling hot, he begs Willett for advice. In the next scene, Walm is out here testing the extent of his fire magic. His magic threatens to burn the entire camp with its scale. It even burns Burrito's hair. Walm realizes that he's making a mess and begs the magic user to help him stop the chaos. Willett calmly casts a bubble of water magic and engulfs him whole, preventing the flames. He then chucks his body right into a nearby pond, causing Walm to hit his head. He really doesn't like the way he just got ragdolled. The magic user extends his hand and pulls his friend back up. Willett is supremely impressed to admit that Walm is capable of fire magic and urges them to continue their training. While they're busy, the scene cuts to Commander Duel, who finds a messenger from the Allied troops. Apparently, Captain Ligurian has laid out an order specifically for Duel, which puts a smile on his face and he feels curious about its contents. The messenger suddenly declares that Commander Duel and his team are crazy, a reaction that the commander didn't expect. Fast forwarding ahead, we see Walm discussing the strategy they were briefed to follow. Duel's squad is supposed to merge with the main battalion, commencing the start of another war in the plains of Reprieve region. This location threatens the defeat of the High Cirque Empire, as Mired and Farius, both enemy nations, have supreme advantage over terrain. It's suspected that their army will move to attack the Mired army first. Lord Farius Winson is currently discussing battle strategy with his council members. It's shocking to them how the High Cirque soldiers are crazy enough to take on their army of 6,000. Lord Farius thinks that it's going to be an easy way to demolish them and make an example out of their corpses. He suspects that the Mired army will first be attacked by Jeff's cavalry battalion, as understandably the High Cirque forces are clever, and will send their best troops for this mission. However, Lord Farius declares that they're not their main enemies. He roars his men to seize the victory for their king. The thing is, this man is planning to take out both Mired and High Cirque today so that he can rule alone. Lord Farius spots the High Cirque troops in the distance and realizes that they've already begun moving, thus commencing the start of the war. Hailing from the High Cirque Empire are only a mere 15,000 men, and they're going up against the allied forces of Mired and Farius, combined with a total of 25,000. Duel's squad is at the forefront leading the assault. Jose casually admits that the only reason the Mired forces are acting tough right now is because they're stepping foot on the Farius lands. Commander Duel knows well that this location was picked specifically to wipe out the High Cirque forces, while Nor wonders what they're doing by chit-chatting when the war has already begun. Walm notices his team leader's expression, who doesn't seem to be sure about the operation. The commander briefs them on what's about to happen. The High Cirque army intends to attack the Mired stronghold first, and that clash will decide everything. As for the Ligurian battalion, which consists of the Duel squad, they'll be merging together to attack Jeff's cavalry battalion. Walm is shocked. Jose even points out how reckless this plan is. It doesn't make sense that they're the ones being chosen for this role. Duel reveals that the Ligurian battalion is known to have the most experience of all, but he admits that this whole thing is concerning. Burrito can't comprehend the scale of the situation, but the commander paints the picture by saying that they'll be catching up on speed. If any of one of them tries to break pace and stop, they'll be crushed by the running soldiers. Stopping means death, and this fight relies on them swinging their weapons without stopping for even a moment. Duel also can't place a finger on why their squad is specifically chosen to be on the front lines, making the ordeal even more difficult for them. He blames Walm for everything. If he hadn't showed off his power skill and killed one of the enemy commanders, none of this would have happened. Walm blames Duel for being even more impulsive than him, a response that makes him shut up. Well, the good thing is that they have two power move uses by their side, alongside Willott's excellent magic ability. Walm turns around to look at the state of the battle and wonders if they can really even compete with the cavalry soldiers at all. His resolve wavers because it seems tough whether they'll make it out in one piece without dying. Duel also finds it strange that the fight has already begun when there aren't any official orders yet. The commander is beginning to think that this plan is already shattering apart. However, he is confident that Commander Berger wouldn't miscalculate something like this. At long last, the main army of Farius finally arrives. Duel doesn't know what to do, while Nor questions how they should react. Alongside the main army of Farius, they even spot the reserve army of Mired soon approaching this way. At this rate, if they don't act now, the High Cirque army will be demolished. Duel decides to take everything in his own hands and roars the battalion to target the Farius stronghold. This is a strange order because it deviates from the soldiers' original strategy to target Mired. However, there's no point arguing because the cavalrymen have already taken off. The High Cirque soldiers are pushed to the brim, as Walm strengthens his resolve and bursts forth, a scene which can be described as running to one's own death. Walm pushes on ahead. Despite struggling to keep up with the cavalry, he successfully kills one of the enemy soldiers with a clean swing. Repositioning himself, he pushes forward. Commander Duel shares his theory. He connected the dots. The entire thing was a setup from the start. It was to show the enemy forces that the High Cirque army is dysfunctioning, which allowed the enemy armies to approach them all the way here. That original plan from the beginning was a lie, which forced the enemy to make adjustments, and now most of the forces are stuck dealing with the High Cirque army. This means Lord Farius' army headquarters are open for attack, which means their real target is to actually target the headquarters. The squad leader emphasizes that they must act quickly because their main army won't be able to keep up for long while acting as the decoy. Walm pushes forth, knowing that this is the only chance they have to win over their enemies. As he's racing forth, the enemy soldiers put up shields to confront the forefront squad. Duel commands both his magic users to attack, allowing Walm to cook up a fireball in his hand. Manipulating it successfully, he directs it straight at the enemy soldiers. The attack successfully connects and obliterates the shield warriors. Willett is proud of him, and with this initial attack, they've opened up a gap to surge forth. The enemy soldiers are trying their best to stop their squad, but Duel obliterates them alongside his team to remove all obstacles in their way. Reaching closer and closer to headquarters, they spot a bunch of anti-cavalry barricades laid out in the open. Duel commands his team to clear a path for the cavalrymen so they can attack. Walm and the others exert their physical limits to grab and pull the barricades rooted into the ground. Thankfully, they manage to clear an opening for them just in time. With this, they've officially become the first of Jeff's battalion to have reached this far. Jose emphasizes the cavalrymen to make way ahead, allowing them to sweep right in and slaughter the enemy soldiers with their lances. One of the enemy soldiers is injured and gets brutally crushed under the weight of the cavalrymen. Things are looking difficult for Walm, as he struggles to keep up his breath after constant exertions and sprinting into the battlefield. However, Duel explains that they can't lose heart here, as the battle has only just begun. They're approaching the Farius stronghold, and that's going to be the real challenge. Speaking of the main troops of Farius, they send a powerful combatant who ends up knocking away Walm with a powerful swing. This same warrior is demolishing the Ligurian battalion. From the looks of it, this guy is a royal guard, wearing a completely different set of equipment from the other soldiers. Walm understands that he's dealing with someone from within Farius' stronghold, which is a hint that their leader is close by. Walm roars at this warrior to step aside because death is guaranteed for him. Ordering him to remain silent, the warrior lashes his sword at him. The force behind his swing is so powerful that it is beginning to overwhelm him. Walm is redirected and somehow escapes the swing. He's in a pinch, while Duel and his squad are struggling to deal with the never-ending wave of Farius soldiers. Jose points out a strange group lurking around the left rear side, and they're running away instead of defending the stronghold. Duel catches on and realizes that this must be the general trying to escape. He asks his men to partner up with him for the mission, but unfortunately all of them are busy dealing with dozens of soldiers at a time. Commander Duel is caught in a desperate situation. This is the only chance he has of killing their general, and he realizes that these enemy soldiers are merely a distraction for the general's escape plan. Duel becomes outrageous in his fury, annoyed that the enemy forces lack honor on the battlefield. Back to Walm, he confronts the royal guard and decides to use his power move, but despite his best shot, he is still overwhelmed even with the usage of his skill. In the end, the royal guard sends our protagonist flying from the impact, knocking Walm's body with a heavy crash. He coughs out blood and can barely move, but despite his injuries, Walm's body is screaming to burn this man down. His only shot of defeating this guy is using fire magic, but even a fireball won't be enough against his fully armored opponent. As long as they're protecting the stronghold, it will be impossible to reach their headquarters. The war will be lost if the general manages to get away. That means everything rests on his shoulders. Walm intends to let loose and unleash the strongest of his flames. He does that by engulfing everything around him with a column of fire, causing his opponent to feel alarmed. The enemy soldiers are terrified by the magic user. They want to stop him, but thanks to Jose and the others, they're incapable of reaching Walm. The field burns with Walm expending more of his flames. Jose urges Noor and Burrito to keep their distance from their friend, or else they'll all get caught in his flames. The royal guard can't believe how far this man is willing to go. Declaring that he'll kill Walm here and now, he rides forth for another swing. The opportune moment arrives, but the moment the royal guard swings his sword, his weapon is literally sliced off by the molten flames. Engulfed by the incinerating flames, the royal guard questions what's going on. Those same flames turned into a bluish hue and became even more intense than regular fire magic. Walm decimates his opponent to ashes, leaving everything around him burning. Back at the Farius stronghold, Lord Farius receives important news that things have gone south on them. One of the council members suggests that they join the main battalion, or else the general is at risk of being killed, which will destroy the army as a whole. Pissed off, Lord Farius refuses to seize control of his stronghold and runs away like a coward. Suddenly, one of the injured soldiers comes to inform him that their anti-cavalry fences have been destroyed. Lord Farius quickly realizes just how bad things have gotten, while his men urge him to get moving. When the ruler steps outside, he sees everything engulfed in blue flames. The sight of these blue flames remind him of a conversation he had with one of his ministers, who informed him that blue fire represented a gateway to hell. If it's here, then that signifies death is lingering close by. An overwhelmed Farius sweats profusely, observing the ignis fatuus or the blue flames. Ahead of him is the man responsible for opening the gates of hell and decorating the enemy soldiers with death. Walm stares at him, before confessing that his next attack will be aimed at the commanding general. Lord Farius comes to grapple with the idea that this guy is a normal soldier, and yet he has the ego to speak down to the commander of both the expedition forces. Walm takes a moment to question if he's dealing with the real Farius or if this is some kind of duplicate. Ultimately, he admits that it's the real commanding general and orders him to surrender. Walm could easily kill this man right away, but he doesn't have any orders to radically do such a thing. In circumstances like these, it's much more beneficial to hold enemy superiors as captives. Lord Farius replies that he's capable of fighting with his arms, and thus he wields a sword for his own pride. He can see that his men are fighting for his cause, and because of that, he refuses to surrender. Farius unsheathes his blade, and the battle begins. Walm dodges his first attack and returns a wide swing with his weapon. He contemplates the words of the commanding general and realizes that if he hadn't responded to that attack properly just now, he would have received a fatal wound. Previously, Walm suspected that the commanding general merely had his title because of his royal status, but he admits that Farius is extremely powerful. In any ordinary circumstance, Walm would have the advantage, but right now he's fatigued from all the running and the exhaustion of his mina. No skills or magic are left at his disposal, which makes him wonder how he should defeat this guy. In the middle of his contemplation, Farius comes flying with a sword swing aimed at Walm's head. Luckily, he's able to evade just in time, and using this opening, he tries to pierce the commander with a strike of his own. That doesn't go too well for him, because Farius ends up blocking the attack, frustrating Walm that he can't expose any weak spots here. The royal swordmaster speed blitzes our protagonist and slices off his arm, causing him to gush out a pool of blood. Things have gone even worse than before, and Farius capitalizes on this opportunity to aim for another attack. However, Walm decides to launch his axe right at the swordmaster, stopping his attack and forcing him to deflect it. Initially, Lord Farius thought that his opponent had gone insane to throw his weapon, but the moment he turns to gaze at Walm, this guy is already in his face. The fight is over as Walm slashes his neck with his reserve sword. Lord Farius topples to the ground. With what's left of him, he admits his defeat, and despite that, believes strongly in the victory of his own kingdom. In response, Walm glares at him before roaring at the horizon of Commander Farius' defeat. With that announcement, the soldiers of the Farius stronghold make their escape, but it's futile as the High Cirque squads chase after them to hunt them down. Meanwhile, an exhausted Walm sees one of the enemy soldiers coming to check on Lord Farius' health. This person quickly takes his blade and chops his own head off, a sight that leaves Walm shocked. After a while, the body is properly inspected and they come to verify that it is indeed Winston Farius. The cavalryman asks about Walm's squad and learns that he's from the Duel group. Commander Jeff is proud of him and assures him that he'll be rewarded properly for it, though he recommends he stay alive until then. Jose also comes around to check on Walm's state, who admits that he's feeling extremely tired. Walm worriedly asks about the others and discovers that they're all doing okay too. Squad leader Duel comes up looking all bashed in. He's panting heavy breaths and despite his wounds, still boasts the courage to fight. The battle continues, but the scene leaves Walm experiencing dread. Victory was now assured and the High Cirque Empire had won over both the Farius and Mired armies. Meanwhile, things are looking shaky in the Mired headquarters. Their leader, Youth Mired, is frightened to learn of Farius' death. He's shivering in fear, questioning why he bothered to betray his own motherland when Lord Farius couldn't even survive on his own. Youth Mired sinks in despair, apologizing to his daughter for being a fool. He knows that there's no choice left but to surrender. But even that choice is robbed of his control as one of his men is slaughtered before his eyes. Entering the tent are the enemy soldiers. They've all come here to apprehend the man responsible for betraying his country. In his final moments, Youth Mired is confronted with the consequences of his actions. He reflects what he could have done differently, though his reflection is ultimately meaningless as he is executed soon after. The defeat of the Allied forces led to the High Cirque army advancing to Edinburgh, the capital of Mired. Even though Walm and his squad were meant to preserve order in the capital, he feels incredibly out of place just being here. Rita wonders how Duel managed to pull the strings to have them invited to a large residence. Jose doesn't understand it either and fails to comprehend how this place isn't a jail. The commander hears their banter loud and clear and understands that from their point of view, Duel has made a mistake. Duel wonders if this is all just a show to reward their squad. After all, Walm remembers Commander Jeff stating the same thing on the battlefield, so he thinks it's the case too. Well, they're served tea. Jose doesn't know how to drink it properly, and in an effort to appear good-mannered in front of everyone, these guys do their absolute best to drink tea quietly. As for Walm, he never could have anticipated coming across a good blend of tea. The thing is, Walm doesn't comprehend the manners of this world, but he is well-versed in the modern world and its customs. So when he drinks it, he appears elegant and polite. The tea is so good because he hasn't had a chance to experience it ever since he came up in this world. Watching him drink with elegance makes his friends wonder if this guy is really a farmer at this point. The door opens and an old man steps in, observing that they're all having fun. He urges them to take their seats, emphasizing that they'll be having a conversation. Walm takes one look at the man and realizes that he's laying his eyes on a war hero known as Commander Belga. Belga drinks his tea and sets it down. He starts off by mentioning how astonished he was after discovering that Commander Duel's squad was single-handedly responsible for defeating the commanding general. Belga thinks they've all surpassed him with this achievement and thus wants to reward them for their efforts. Duel expresses politeness and surprises his subordinates. The war hero addresses him and acknowledges Belga's fierce participation in the battle. Duel thanks him for it, which leads Belga to get to his main subject of interest, Walm. He addresses the young man's track record, pointing out that Walm experienced battles near the border after joining the battalion. He became the ultimate weapon for his squad leader, and even managed to learn magic from Willat. Finally, he commanded the use of the Ignis Fatuus blue flames. In him shines a brimming talent unlike anyone else. In response, Walm thanks Belga for his remarks. The commander explains that he had only seen the blue flames once in his life, and ever since then, he's been thanking God that a soldier of High Cirque came to possess such a power. The blue flames are terrifying beyond one's imagination, and any hero who possessed them in the past was well known for this ability. Walm is now one of those people. Saying this, Belga orders Lynette to bring the prized object. It's revealed to be an Oni mask that was originally worn by a party of otherworlders who fought against the Three Nations. The mask is coveted in history, but one thing is for certain. The wielder of the mask in the past was capable of using the blue flames. Belga urges Walm to try it on, so he does exactly that by wearing it. But the sensation of wearing the mask feels odd to him, as if Walm is being dragged to the sentiments of his original world. The commander jokingly states that now all of his enemies will quiver in fear after seeing it in combat. Walm expresses his thanks, and right as he removes the mask from his face, the thing starts levitating from his grasp. Duel and the rest of his squad are terrified because they're thinking the mask is possessed or something. While they're out here losing their marbles, Belga laughs uncontrollably, incapable of stopping himself from the stomachache he got from their reactions. Belga finally reveals that the mask appears to like its new owner. Due to its unordinary nature, it is capable of syncing with one's emotions. The good thing is that it hasn't tried to harm Walm yet, which shows that it likes him. In this world, Belga highlights that certain weapons possess a will of their own, and this mask specifically is known for being stubborn in its taste. At least now it has found a good owner to fit its power. After the meeting, Duel and his squad are walking in the hall, when Jose wonders how Walm is going to use the mask. The soldier intends to keep the mask as a cherished gift from Belga. Nor is creeped the hell out and recommends throwing it away, leaving the rest of the squad to collectively scold her for her dumb opinion. With the mask in his possession, Walm internalizes his thoughts. He doesn't feel weird that a weapon has its own will, especially not when he himself has experienced reincarnation in another world. Later that day, Nor sees a pile of dead bodies of the Mired soldiers and questions why they're here. Apparently, it's because the soldiers figured that this would be the safest place for them to hide. In the end, it doesn't matter how powerful the Mired forces were, because it only took them a few battles to crumble. This kind of idea is lost on Walm, who doesn't comprehend why people try so hard to acquire wealth. Duel adds that it's the mark of ungrateful people who went too far. They come to learn that the Mired Lord had already been killed before their forces stepped inside the capital. It's regrettable that the city didn't improve even a tiny percentage. Well, at its current, Wom points out the rising death toll. His group is told to maintain order, and an aspect of that job is to find every last one of those mired soldiers hiding in the city. They must also locate the people breaking martial law and looting around for a smoother operation. On the streets, one man is being dragged as he helplessly chants that he's not a soldier. The men seizing him suspect him to be one, stating that he's got a fresh wound on him, so it must be recent. They refuse to believe his testimony and figure that he'll do well in labor as punishment. Watching the scene from afar, Walm begins to question if it's worthwhile to question people like that. He thinks it's useless as a whole. Burrito and Duel keep on hearing the sounds of people trying to kill each other nearby, hinting that there's some kind of fight going on. When Walm arrives to the scene, he is shocked to discover that those imbecilic soldiers went overboard with their job by invading a house and raping a woman. They also killed her husband. It's a good thing that the troublemaker was seized in time. Immediately, Walm is overwhelmed with anger and questions what will become of the culprit responsible for his disgusting crimes. In ordinary circumstances, such a person would be punished with their head chopped off, but now that they've won the war, they can't do anything more than beat him up. Walm is now officially ticked off, refusing to believe that being whipped is enough for a heinous crime. Duel comes along and assures him that being whipped is quite the torturesome experience. Even experienced soldiers seethe and scream in pain on the first whip. Beyond that, they're begging and their skin is shaved off with every whip. The moment they're about to lose consciousness, the experience resets them with another whip, repeating it all over again. The detained culprit hears all of this and practically starts shivering at the realization of what's about to happen to him. Duel looks at him with merciless eyes while Commander Jeff warns the rest of the soldiers to be wary of the same punishment. Grabbing his shoulder, Duel tries to comfort Walm and leaves. Later that night, our protagonist is smoking a cigarette all alone. His exhaustion from the day is catching up on him, and a sleep spell nearly takes him out, when suddenly he hears someone nearby. Getting up, Walm looks around, asking who's there. He wonders if it's some other High Cirque soldier or if he's dealing with some kind of Mired straggler. Revealing his weapon, he asks a final time for this mysterious person to reveal themselves. Coming out of hiding, the duo apologizes. Walm reminds them that if they're not High Cirque soldiers, then they are restricted from going outside at night. The old man agrees and explains that he's afraid of the city being filled with thieves and bad people. That's why they want to escape to a country nearby, hoping to seek shelter there. One glance at them confirms to Walm that these people are ordinary citizens. Just to be sure, he asks them if they're tied to the military in any way. The old man emphasizes that he is not but used to share experience in a war a decade ago. Walm is suspicious of the old man's words, pointing out that this guy has an extremely fine stature and physique for someone so old. Not to mention, the young lady he has alongside her doesn't seem to be a laborer, which begs the question what she means to him. The old man assures Walm that they're only doing this for their own health, and that his granddaughter here lost her parents. He kept her and raised her on his own, but something about this guy doesn't seem right in Walm's eyes. Tensions rise and it seems like they're about to fight, but then suddenly the granddaughter's tummy growls for food, causing her to become flustered. The whole thing makes Walm erupt in uproarious laughter. He stops and apologizes for his reaction, praising the young lady for her looks. Choosing to be a good man, Walm allows them to go on ahead with their mission. As they're leaving, he stops them again. Walm brought some food with him, and he wants the girl to take it because she's hungry. He even assures them that he's had a rough day and wants to feel less guilty by doing something good for once. Making his intentions clear, Walm promises her that the food isn't poisoned. The young lady takes the jar from him and thanks him with a smile. In the next scene, Walm sees them rowing away on a boat. He wonders if they reacted to him strangely because of the fact that he was one of the invading soldiers in their city. There's no doubt in his mind that he was responsible for killing their family, and his heinous actions can't be forgiven by simply offering someone food to eat. Speaking of the duo, the girl is revealed to be Rita Mired, who is devastated to learn that her family has been slaughtered while she remained helpless to do anything. Her country has been invaded and there's nothing left for her. In this fleeting moment, her grandfather assures Rita that they still had a chance to fight back. But for that to happen, Rita must become stronger and become the beacon of hope for her land. To achieve that, they focus on their current strategy to head towards Celta. 2 months flew by and Commander Duel seems to have gone crazy. The High Cirque soldiers are mocking the Farius soldiers who are hiding behind their defensive fort. Duel orders them to sing louder and louder to break the enemy's spirit. Their tactic appears to be working as the enemy soldiers can't bear the noise. This area is dubbed cleared by the commander and he suggests heading back. 2 months right after the siege of the Mired capital, the High Cirque army ventured towards Farius. Thanks to their involvement in assisting Mired using their forces, they had none left to protect their own borders. The High Cirque army understood this weakness, so they began splitting up to target the villages and towns on the border to surrender. The battalions split up into 2 groups, with the first one targeting the inland area while the second one kept the Farius army busy, ensuring that it wouldn't be flanked. Our protagonist is currently part of this second group, which intends to besiege the Refn mine around the border. That leads us to the current state of things, where Duel and his squad are going around taking control of the mines. Thanks to their oppressive forces, they cornered the Farius soldiers back to their forts, allowing them to stack up on their numbers while also maintaining the high ground. Despite his lust for battle, Commander Duel understands that it's inefficient to try taking down even one of the forts. That's why they're just launching a harassing campaign to scare the soldiers and break their spirits first, before directly launching an attack and wiping them out. The men on the forts are cursing out the High Cirque soldiers for being barbarians, which only adds to Duel's entertainment. While this is happening, Walm points out that their objective here is to make the enemy soldiers run out of resources. It's an amusing fight compared to the hell they experienced earlier. 2 weeks pass just like that, and both parties are still the same. Knowing that there isn't any immediate fighting going on, Duel instructs his squad to train to keep them busy. Willot and Walm venture into a mine, where the magic user criticizes Walm for being a liability when it comes to battle. He runs the risk of harming his own allies because his usage of the blue flames is out of the ordinary. In the worst-case scenario, Walm could potentially kill his own platoon, which is why Willot has brought him to an abandoned mine to train him. Moments later, the soldier visualizes an image of fire and unleashes the blue flames. While they're training inside, Jose and the others are busy sword fighting and sparring against each other to keep busy. Duel defeats both Burrito and Nor at the same time. Burrito tries to get back up, but he sneezes so loud that Nor makes fun of him for it. Annoyed, he declares that he'll kill them all. But in the end, the guy gets bitch slapped across the face by his captain and gets knocked out. Again, Burrito ends up being clowned by everyone. A few days passed, and at last, Walm is beginning to see some progress in his ability to control the blue flames. However, an even bigger problem has replaced the old one. Right now, his maximum capacity to use the Ignis Fatuus is a pathetic 30-second duration before his body reaches its limit. If he takes the risk of using it for 40 seconds, he'll run out of mana, rendering his skills unusable. He acknowledges an even bigger risk of death if the flames are used for too long. Jose knocks Walm out of his daydream and asks if he's finished already, to which he responds by agreeing that he can't go on any longer without collapsing. He came here to check on the guy because he still hadn't come out of the training grounds. But Walm points out that Jose actually came for the delicious chicken instead. It's a bit disappointing to Walm that they're using his ability to heat up food. But then again, Jose is a good cook, so it evens out the effort for both of them. Outside, they let loose the delicious smell of chicken to reach all the way to the defensive fort. This is one other psychological plan to break their enemy's fighting spirit. Walm states that at the end of the day, people wanted to eat as much as they could. Jose shares his opinion that good food should always be a requirement on the battlefield, and he tosses a piece of chicken to him. Walm takes a bite and internalizes how delicious it is. However, he denies it in front of Jose and says that he's only eating because using the blue flames completely exhausted his body. As they're setting up camps for the night, Jose remarks that their days of living this kind of lifestyle are numbered. Confused, Walm asks him what he implies. Jose takes a moment to think and explains that it's strange how the number of fleeing soldiers is increasing day by day. It's like they're incapable of having the will to fight anymore, so they're just surrendering everything. Walm thinks it must be thanks to the harassing campaign, and while Jose agrees, he argues that the smell of his chicken must also be a contributing factor in their enemy's demise. Walm is baffled by his serious remark, causing his friend to roar in laughter. Jose decides to get serious and explains what he really means. For an ordinary Farius soldier, these walls are cages. They're surrounded by enemy forces, and there is the never-ending sound of battle raging outside. Then there's the fact that they need to manage their resources to eat and survive, while their enemies are celebrating with delicious feasts just outside. All in all, Jose thinks that it's going to be impossible for the Farius soldiers to resist the pressure, and inevitably their miserable spirits will be shattered. Hearing his take, Walm is starting to feel guilty all of a sudden. However, Jose thinks this lifestyle will soon come to an end, so it's best to enjoy it while they still can. Despite his words, Walm finds it to be a meaningful learning experience and intends to observe more around him. 3 days passed by, resulting in a massive explosion of blue flames, obliterating the enemy fort. To their shock, the Farius soldiers are incapable of comprehending how the High Cirque army invaded inside. While they're chaotically searching for the invaders in an effort to extinguish the blue flames, Walm is already there waiting for them, with the singular goal of killing them all.
Here I am.